Hey South Metro, this is Kelsey Bailey and I'm here with Scott Freel from Station 36.
Hey everybody.
We are going to show a cooking demo today of a Thai peanut spaghetti squash recipe. You guys wanted to work on some Asian dishes, so we're going to bring that into this cooking demo, and you'll hopefully get some good takeaway skills that will help enhance what you can do at your own stations or what you can do at home for your cooking needs. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. First things first, the thing that is going to take the longest in this particular recipe is our spaghetti squash. So I have one that's already prepped that we'll demo here in a second, but you, lucky sir, are going to be the one that gets to cut this one in half. And I will say we'll pause before we cut, because with any sort of produce, even if it comes like this, so like cantaloupe or watermelon, we want to wash it off first. Yep.
All right.
Bacteria can transfer from the skin through the knife, so really important to remember for all of those different cooking items, whether it be watermelon, cantaloupe, anything that's larger squash, remember to always wash it so we don't get bacteria through the skin of that.
All right, washed up.
All right. So you can either cut in half like I did, or if you want to do lengthwise, that's perfect. That's the extra strength it's needed for a good spaghetti squash. Awesome, that looks perfect. So spaghetti squash is one of our winter squashes, so it'll be similar to butternut squash or acorn squash, a little more starchy than a typical zucchini or a yellow squash that you would get more in the summertime. It's good for a base of like a hearty meal, but has lower carbohydrate than we would typically see with any sort of whole grain noodle or lentil-based or legume-based noodle. So it's good for those folks who maybe are having a lighter training day, off day, recovery day, that we can get a lower carbohydrate meal based off of the noodles like this. So when it's raw, you can see that there's no real big strings that you can see within the raw squash, but once it's all cooked, we have these little strings that are starting to come out, and that's where we'll get the noodle base of our meal. So next step after we get this cut is exactly right. He has his spoon already ready, is to scoop out the insides, so that seeds and kind of the good innards. If you have children, this is a super fun job for them to do, is to get a spoon in there and get their hands messy with all the fun goopy innards.
And Kelsey, you talked about composting.
Yes.
Right? So that's another good idea, and some people do that, but
yeah, so we have our nice compost bowl here. You can always, if you have a compost at home on your own, you can get these green bags just at any store or at Amazon, grocery store. I always like to take all my extra cooking scraps and put them in that.
All right, so yeah.
So what have been your favorite dishes with spaghetti squash that you've made?
We just usually when we make spaghetti, just traditional spaghetti, instead of using noodles.
You use the squash?
Add the squash for vegetables. And a lot of times when we're just looking for another vegetable with a protein, so we'll just do chicken, rice, and some spaghetti squash.
Nice.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great, easy flavor to add a lot of different sauces or seasonings to. You can even put olive oil, salt, pepper, and like Parmesan cheese on top, and it tastes really good as a side dish.
Do this one?
Yep, that's perfect. So with the spaghetti squash, we're already preheating the oven in the back to 400 degrees. Super easy to remember, 400 degrees for 40 minutes. So you can also do a spaghetti squash in a microwave for 10 to 15 minutes. I do find that it gets a little bit more watery than if you do that in the oven. The oven gives it kind of like that nice roasted caramelized flavor. However, if you're in a pinch and you need to get it done quickly, and you're like me, you have a 2-year-old and one on the way, and the day's snappy, we need to get it done in 10 minutes, it's a good quick option to go to as well.
Kelsey, we're seasoning this, right? We're gonna flavor it?
Yep, we're just gonna put olive oil, salt, pepper.
All right.
Yeah, so nothing too crazy, but we'll stick that on our pan right behind us and get that ready to go in the oven. Awesome, yep. So just a regular baking pan, we'll season with olive oil. We can just drizzle right over the top.
Okay.
And then just salt, pepper, super easy. Doesn't require too much finesse. And our oven just beeps, so it's ready to go. And this is kind of the, set it and forget it until your timer goes off with the spaghetti squash. So it's nice because we can prepare all of our other items just right while we're waiting for this to cook. We're just gonna flip them over so that they get that nice caramelized side on the bottom. So we get that roasted flavor that we got over with this one. And we'll go ahead and place in the oven. Reminder, 400 degrees for 40 minutes, 440. The next steps that we're going to address in this are getting our protein ready. So we have one demoed already. I made a chicken in the Instant Pot. This could be done in like a crock pot too if you have time, a longer course over the day and you kind of want like set and forget your protein. Instant Pot or crock pot are great options for keeping moisture within any sort of protein item while you're going to be gone. So if you don't know exactly what time you're going to be back to the station or back to your house, but you want your protein to be done but not dried out, those are great options to do. The biggest thing is to remember to include enough fluid so that it can stay moisturized enough that it's not drying out in your crock pot or your Instant Pot. So with this particular chicken, we threw that in the Instant Pot for just 15 minutes on the poultry side. I put in some chicken broth and then I utilized this seasoning. It's just a mushroom blend from Trader Joe's. You could really use anything, as simple as salt, pepper, and some like chili powder, nothing too crazy. With the Asian proteins, I always go toward what am I making my sauce out of. So within this, I added just a little bit of the tamari and I added a little bit of sesame oil, just drizzled right on top, and just again, make sure you have enough fluid. So you can do water or you could do chicken broth just to keep it a nice, good flavor. And then we shredded this afterwards. So for this recipe today, we're gonna utilize another way of cooking. So we can just saute chicken on the stove. So we have our already cubed. We're gonna get it seasoned up and marinated so it tastes good while we're cooking it. So you can set that right here for me. And we'll start with olive oil.
Olive oil.
And then I'm gonna let you explore your cooking creative freedoms on how much you would like to add of these various things. So we'll add in some tamari. Tamari is just a gluten-free version of soy sauce. So whichever you prefer. I didn't know people's food allergies here, so I chose tamari. If people are gluten and soy intolerant, a good option is coconut aminos. It'll be a little bit of a thicker liquid, but tamari is a great, super easy alternative that tastes exactly like regular soy sauce. Sesame oil over there as well. Sesame oil is a game changer for Asian recipes. So we want to get toasted or roasted sesame oil.
Tablespoon?
You are the creative. You are the creative cooking genius on this show.
All right.
I mean, it smells delicious in here. I know none of you can smell it, but it smells so delicious. It really adds a ton of body to any sort of the seasonings, marinades that you make for Asian dishes. Salt, pepper. So season to your heart's desire. You know these guys better than I do.
Yeah. I definitely don't like to skimp on the salt and pepper.
Yeah. And then we'll add in just a hair of that crushed red pepper. So depending on how spicy that they like it. If you don't like spice, omit the crushed red pepper. If you love spice, go for it. And we'll just simply saute this in a typical pan that you would on the stove. Olive oil, and then here we go. Yep, you can give that a good toss. Get the marinade all over the chicken. Chicken cooks pretty quickly on the stove. Usually like 8 to 10 minutes max is where you'll be good. So we'll wait a little bit to start ours just so it doesn't dry out. All right, so next up we're gonna work on our sauce. This is the king of this recipe. So a lot of Asian dishes will have some sort of grain base or noodle base that we work off of, a protein and then veggies, but the sauce is what makes it. So this is the key component of this recipe. So we'll start off with the peanut butter actually.
Peanut butter?
Yeah, and we'll get a half a cup of peanut butter. So this is the Thai peanut spaghetti squash. If you have any allergies to peanuts, you can also alternate with an almond butter, or if you have a nut allergy in your home, you can also go to sunflower seed butter. So there's a lot of good options that you can still build this recipe from. This particular peanut butter that we got is just peanuts and salt. They're the only ingredients on the label. So pretty simple. A lot of people will complain of the oil at the top of those. You can just store it upside down and that'll help with that.
Quarter cup?
Half a cup.
Half a cup.
Half a cup of peanut butter. And the peanut butter really ties a lot of things together for the Asian dish, especially within Thai cooking. There's a lot of different peanut butter Thai curries and things as well. So a great addition to add in. That's not always thought of in the Asian food world.
And the bowl?
Yep, that's perfect. Beautiful. And then with any Asian cooking, there are some key components that are just great to have on hand for your pantry at home. We talked about a few of them already, but rice wine vinegar, I usually get the unseasoned for most of the recipes that we do here. That sesame oil that we talked about before, again, adds a ton of depth. Tamari is another good one to have on hand just to add some good spice. You can build off of these. I also like to use like the garlic chili oil or garlic chili paste that you'll see in the grocery store. That adds a lot of depth and flavor. And once you have those, it's easy to mix and match on a lot of different Asian inspired dishes. So people sometimes get intimidated by Asian food or like the cost of bringing a lot of stuff on board. But once you have these few staples, it's no problem. And I don't think any of these ingredients were above $5 at the store today. So can be good to stock your pantry with, and they last a long time. All right, so yes, you're so right. We need a quarter cup of water. So we use the dry ingredients. This is actually perfect because we use the dry ingredient measurements for our dry ingredients. But for any of the fluid ingredients, we want to make sure you're utilizing a fluid measuring cup. And it just has to do where we're measuring from on the line for the water. So we need just a hair more.
A little bit more.
Yeah. So you want to go right to that line where we see
quarter
the
cup, right?
crust. Yep, you got it. Okay. And he's perfect. He's checking right at that line, so the bottom of that curve of the water is just right there.
And a quarter cup?
Quarter cup of tamari as well. So you can either add that right into this, or we can dump that water in first, but we're going to add it in just to keep it easy. We'll go to half a cup. Yep. Save time and dishes.
We like that in the firehouse.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
We're at a half cup.
Perfect. Awesome. So that'll just go right into the peanut butter.
All right.
All right, and we got a few different things to add in from the vinegar side of the house and the oil side of the house. So we'll start off with our tablespoon, actually, because I think that more of those, 1 tablespoon of the rice wine vinegar. Right? Yep. Okay. And then 1 tablespoon of the sesame oil. And all of these recipes will be able to be found at the South Metro Fire and Rescue Google Sheets that we have a big drive that holds a lot of different recipes that you can choose from. The link will be there. You can just click on it and you'll have a lot of modifications and notes from me as well in there of how do we add in more vegetables? Are there modifications I make to the recipe to bring in a little more depth of flavor? And then notes like, kids love this, or where to find a particular ingredient in the grocery store that may seem a little bit more obscure and not as easy to find. So look forward to those. That link will be sent out for those recipes as well. All right, so now we're on to the maple syrup. This just adds a little bit of depth of flavor and the sweetness side. With Asian cooking, we have a lot of the umami side where we bring in salty and savory and sweet to kind of balance out all of those flavors. So we'll add in a tablespoon of maple syrup to help with that. It can always be omitted if you don't want any additional sugar added in. Just know what its purpose is and kind of the sauce that we're looking for.
I know you mentioned earlier about keto diets, if people are on keto diets and adding sugar. So if we add just a little bit of sugar, does it take it right out of the keto realm?
No, it will not. Not with how many people this amount of sauce is going to be divvied between. The amount of sauce on top will still be perfectly fine for that. Yeah, great question. So if you're following any sort of lower carbohydrate diet, this would still be appropriate. But again, you can even take that out or half dose or half portion size, whatever sweetener is being added. All right, so now the fun part with the sauce. We have garlic and we have ginger here. So I'll let you break off a clove of garlic, and I'm going to give a quick demo on some ginger. So at the grocery store, the fresh ginger looks like this. It will be in the produce section. It's usually at the top shelf above like where some greens or squash usually is. Kind of like where you'd see cilantro kind of at that top shelf as well. So this is a phenomenal spice. It has so many benefits for health in general, but the flavor that it adds, especially fresh ginger that it adds to a meal, is unbelievable. A lot of times people don't know what to do with it or how to prepare it, so we'll show you that today. And just a pro tip on storing it, if you store it in the freezer, you can cut it into little chunks that are ready to go. So we usually just scrape the skin off with a spoon. So I'll cut a small piece that we'll utilize for today's demo. And then you see that there's this brown skin on top, and we can just literally shave that right off. Comes off super easily. Again, if you want to put this in the freezer, I would do this prior. It makes it a little bit easier to handle once you get it out of the freezer. But then it's very, very easy to grate and put into any recipe that you want to utilize ginger in. And you don't have to buy a ton and utilize a ton for it to add a lot of flavor. So you see we're not using a huge amount today because a small amount of ginger takes a big punch of flavor. So we're using about what the tip of my thumb looks like on the amount of ginger to add into this recipe. So on this guy, we're gonna use a microplane. So a little grater, actually, that you can get at like Home Depot for like painting or sanding or any of that. You can also use for cooking. So that's where we got this from. So if you wanna hold that, and then you'll just grate right over the top. And it gives really fine grates, which is really nice for if you're zesting a lemon or a lime. Works for ginger. We're also gonna utilize it for garlic. So it's a frequently utilized tool in my house.
Good.
Perfect. And then you can just tap that in, and then tap the backside. Perfect. All right, next up, we're gonna add our garlic into the sauce. So you'll go ahead and demo how you best get garlic ready to rumble. That's the easiest way, is to get the outside of garlic off, is just to smash it on the backside of a knife and peel off the outside of it. Garlic has a lot of great nutritional properties as well for immune system health. Just be careful if you're going on a nice date night. If you want that amount of massive garlic, it does have that strong garlicky flavor. We're also going to use the microplane for this as well.
And you want the whole thing?
Whole thing. You guys are going to have nice breath for the rest of your shift tonight. Garlic is a staple to so many different recipes. I find that chopping it can be really tedious to get a good mince, and then you end up getting these huge chunks of garlic in your food. So I really like using the microplane for this as well, because it gives you really finely grated garlic without wasting a lot of the outside of the garlic shell that you typically see with a garlic press, which can be quite expensive as well. All right, next up on our sauce, we are going to add the juice of just 1 lime.
So you got the...
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to add juice. So you can just squeeze it in there yourself if you'd like. You can also use like a juicer like this. I personally like these because it gives me some good leverage to get all the juice in. If you're doing like a lemon with your own hand, just tip the lemon upside down. Then you'll catch the seeds. With limes, we don't have that problem.
I like these, so those that burn all my cracks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you have dry hands. Yeah, the whole thing. So you can tell we got a lot of different depths of flavor. So we have acid, we have sweet, we have some savory from the oil side of the house. We have some spice from the ginger. So there's a lot of good depth of flavor. And we're actually just going to whisk this together.
Okay. Let me do it.
Yeah, have at it. You can easily buy your own peanut sauce from the store. However, you're going to have a fair amount more of preservatives present within that. And with this, you can really taste the difference of making something with fresh ingredients. And once you get going with it, it doesn't take a lot to get all of those ingredients on hand and kind of measure them out quickly. And soon enough, you'll recognize, like, you know what you like things to taste like, and so you'll just dump and go. Asian food is quite forgiving on that. So do you want a little bit more sweet and you want to add more maple syrup? Do you want a little bit more savory and we add more oil? Do you want to add a little bit more acid and you want more vinegar? So you can kind of tailor sauces to your liking.
That look okay?
That looks perfect. Awesome. Next, we're going to go into our vegetable section. So big rule of thumb for most meals that I prepare is trying to get 2 colors, at least into most meals. So we can get creative with that. If you have green, can you get red? If you have orange, can we get purple? So in this particular meal, we have some vegetables that are already chopped. This is a great option. I got these from the store like this. So this is like a stir fry kit. We just took out the extra seasonings, but this is all fresh vegetables already chopped. So this one has snap peas, broccoli, and it has kale in there as well. Stuff that's already all ready to go. Brussels sprouts are in there too. Some things that take a lot of time to prepare, but this way you have them all done and you have a good family size amount for an affordable option. So this is a very, very good, easy, quick, let's have the veggies prepped. A lot of folks say that that's a big hindrance in their preparation of meal times, is not having the time to get things done or not having the skills on how to chop. So we're gonna have Scott demo some chopping of our red peppers today. And he's on it, knowing that we already need to wash our vegetables. He did ask me the question at the grocery store about organic versus conventional produce. And big rule of thumb from a health perspective, like a nutrient density, what is it going to provide you nutrient-wise? There is no difference between conventional and organic. However, if there's going to be a lot of like really tiny holes, like a strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, that's when I'll try and buy more organic, where there may be more crevices that are harder to clean out. But we can wash our vegetables and get off a good amount of that pesticide as well. All right, ma'am. How do you like to chop peppers?
So I tend to be a little wasteful, but I prefer to just take the top off.
Yeah.
And I just take these like this and get rid of.
That's exactly how I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're spot on.
This goes
and I'll
in the
take your waste,
compost.
and then we compost it.
Yep.
So not wasteful, composting.
That's right. And then you want them.
Right? Yep. So we're gonna julienne these. You can really chop them however you prefer. They're just gonna go into a big pan to be all sautéed together.
So we just take them and.
All right, so Scott is demonstrating phenomenal knife skills. So he has a good pinch on the head of the knife. That allows for a lot of the control that we'll see within the chopping. You can see that he can chop pretty fast because the blade of the tip of the knife stays pretty close to that cutting board the whole time. So it allows for more control and more speed as we chop vegetables. As we improve cooking skills like this gets easier and easier. A sharp knife also makes a world of difference. People hate chopping because they have dull knives. It makes things very difficult. But you see that took him less than 30 seconds to chop a whole red pepper.
There's some guys on the cruise, you know who to ask to chop for you.
Right.
And not, because sometimes they'll take an hour. And sometimes you just,
yeah.
So you know who to ask.
Yeah, ramp up the skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is perfect. So again, that pinch on the blade is what gives control. A lot of people will chop with a finger over the top, and we lose a lot of control over the blade with that. And that's where a lot of people get injuries with knife work as well. So risk of cutting fingers. You also saw he did a nice bear claw on all this stuff. So he was never at risk of cutting the tips of his fingers off like this, holding something like this, but had a nice claw on it. Perfect. All right, so the last step that we're gonna do before we throw everything into a big pot for sauteing on the vegetable side is we're just gonna show the edamame that we're using for this recipe as well. Edamame is a plant-based protein that can be utilized to add, obviously, plant-based protein to a dish. Really, really good snack for kids as well. In the freezer section, this bag was $2.99, and we get, let's see, protein, we get 9 grams per serving, and there's 5 servings in here. So about 45 grams of protein in this bag of edamame. We're gonna add it in today just for an extra boost on top of the chicken that we already have. You can add or omit if you're trying to do like some meatless Mondays or we're worried about regulating cholesterol. This also can add a good amount of soluble fiber, which is really helpful in managing LDL cholesterol. So good easy options that you can add into dishes to give the nutrient density a little bit of a heftier kick to these dishes. So we'll simply put these in. These have already been thawed. So from the freezer section, they've already been thawed. We can just throw them into the pan directly. If you're getting them from the freezer and then throwing them into a meal, I would let them like microwave for a little while before you throw them into the whole dish. Otherwise, it'll bring the temperature of the rest of the food that we're trying to cook down as we're trying to thaw some frozen food. If you've never seen edamame before, maybe you've seen it within its pod at a sushi restaurant, but this is what the little seeds look like inside, or the little edamame soybeans. And we'll get started on bringing everything together on the stove. All right, so we're gonna head over to the stove now and get started on our veggie saute and then our chicken as well. With the veggies that I mentioned before, a really good way to start to cook these is to get water and olive oil both on board, so we get a little bit of steam with those veggies first, and then they'll start to caramelize with that oil below that. So we'll let you get started with that. And we can throw all these veggies in at once to prepare. We've got a nice big cast iron here, so we can do everything in one pot.
So start with this.
So Scott, would you normally buy a bag of prepared vegetables like this?
So typically, no. I would just go buy carrots, broccoli separate, and just kind of chop them all down and mix them all up. And I've noticed today it would have been a lot more expensive to do that. So it was actually worked out really well for this meal because this particular bag of vegetables was on sale. So it was kind of nice. It worked out really good. So no, but I am going to start. I learned, Kelsey taught me that. So I'll be looking.
We care not only about health, but about budget as well here.
Exactly.
So this meal ended up being right around under $7 per person.
Well, which is about average for us.
Yeah, and that is with buying all the full sizes of those ingredients as well. So once you have those on hand, when you're just buying the produce and the protein that you're looking to add in, it will be way more affordable, but you can make so many dishes out of. All right, next up, we're gonna add our chicken to the other pan. So same thing, we'll just give a quick splash of olive oil to that. And we'll saute our chicken in the other. Again, this doesn't take too long, goes pretty quick, usually 8 to 10 minutes for chicken, depending on how small it was chopped. But we have our nice marinade that the chicken's been sitting in. Woo, spicy. All right, all of our stuff is prepared and ready to assemble. So Scott is bringing over our sauteed veggies. You can see that we added in the edamame to that as well. We did add a little bit of water into that to help it steam first and then saute. But you can see it has that nice caramelized color. And then our chicken is just simply sauteed in there and ready as well. So we'll start with the spaghetti squash on the assembly first. So go ahead and take one side. And you literally just comb it right out. So if you've never utilized spaghetti squash, you can see it just combs out quite easily. If you're getting it right out of the oven, I suggest you put a hot pad on your hand holding the squash, because it will be very hot if you're trying to comb out all the squash with that. But you can see the nice noodle consistency that adds that good base of a starchier vegetable for the base of this. Again, on the scale of squash or even like root vegetables that you would see, zucchini and summer squash will be lower on the carbohydrate scale, so best for recovery days and stuff like that. So if you're doing like a noodle based off of zucchini, best for recovery days or light training days. The spaghetti squash is kind of right in the middle, and then your potatoes, butternut squash, stuff like that is going to have a heftier hit of some of that starchier carbohydrate, better for training days or harder training days. All right, I'll take that for you if you want to start on the other side.
Okay.
Great. So we got a bigger spaghetti squash. This will feed about 4 to 5 people based off of this size. If you're feeding for more, you want extra leftovers, I'd suggest getting 2. Occasionally at the store, you'll see smaller ones as well. Those are usually good for 1 to 2 people. So just in knowing how much you can plan for and how much you can prep for, the size that you're seeing here today is about for 4 to 5 people.
I know we like to use leftovers for lunch the next day.
Oh yeah. All right, we're going to just throw and go with the rest of this. So we'll take our veggies and chicken and just toss them right into this big bowl. The beautiful part of this meal is that it can all be done in one pot. All right, so we'll add in our chicken next. Beautiful. And then the sauce just goes right on top.
And we're doing the whole bowl, right?
Whole bowl. So if you have picky eaters at home, or you want to control the amount of sauce that you have on your particular dish, feel free to add it on top at the end, no problem. You can stir it and mix as you see fit. We're gonna toss and throw and go today. So we'll just bring this all in and toss it all together nicely. You see we have some toppings here already assembled. So we're doing some crushed peanuts. We have scallions, so green onions, limes on top. This really adds a next level to the dish. This is kind of that like restaurant appreciation side of the meal that you can have at home or at a firehouse, where it really just brings like extra crunch, extra acid. If you like a little extra spice flavor from a green onion, we're gonna add in some cilantro on top. Not everybody loves cilantro. Some people have a soapy taste from cilantro in their mouth. So at my house, I typically add in a fist worth of cilantro into the sauce because we all love it, and just mix it right into that way. But we can also have it on top as a topper. That way people can control what they like and what they don't like with that.
I think it's pretty well lit.
Gorgeous. Next. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and demo a plate while, Scott, if you wouldn't mind cutting me up some cilantro actually,
Okay.
and I'll swap you spots.
All right.
So on the plate, one of the good rules of thumb when we have a mixed dish like this is just to start with a fist's worth of portion size. So I'm 5 foot tall. My foot size is different than yours. So make sure it's your size of fist that we're looking at. Beautiful. A note on the cilantro that he's chopping, we did not pick off all the leaves. The stems actually hold the majority of the flavor for cilantro, so including them in the chopped version actually gives a bigger hit of flavor.
I look okay?
Looks beautiful. All right, so we're gonna start with a Scott fist size of portion size on the plate. So typically, this is where we would start and see, okay, how do I feel after this portion? And then if we wanna go back for seconds, great. So start with one portion on your plate. We have a ton of colors in here, so a ton of nutrient density. Again, that 2-color rule. And then we can add our toppers. So I'll let you add what you like best on top.
All right.
Fun fact about cilantro is it can also help bind some heavy metals. So especially if you're doing any sort of like MRIs or anything where they need to insert dye in the hospital setting, cilantro can actually bind to that and excrete it from your system. So fun fact on cilantro. Got your plate set. We have a nice nutrient-dense, colorful meal ready to go. Thanks everybody for watching. We hope you learned something new today, and
I'm ready to eat.
well, let's eat.